All right, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond. I'm excited for today's episode, but before we get into all of that, just want to say a special thanks to all you guys continuing to show support to the podcast. And not only that, but continue to show support to the individuals who come on and be a part of this movement. So thank you for supporting them. I know the holiday season passed, so I know some of you guys have supported their businesses, supported their books, supported them as individuals, advocating in general. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to the top of it for all that you guys do to continue to help me be able to do this. Going forward from that, if you have hopped on here and you don't know who I I laugh every time because it's hard to believe that people just randomly stumble on this, but it does happen. My name is Michael D. Davis Thomas, aka MDDT Speaks. I spent approximately 11 years within the Michigan Child Welfare System. First part of that on the juvenile justice side, a little bit as a dual ward, and then fully the rest of that in foster care until I aged out. Once I aged out, I started to do advocacy full on, doing different jobs within the child welfare space, leading to my life now. I've spent whew, the better part of all my years working in here and some working in child welfare in some shape or form. So that's why I'm here. That's where my knowledge comes from. And that's why I'm doing this to just increase the knowledge of others and the world. So but that being said, you guys aren't here for me, even though I know I could talk for a long time. You guys are here for my guest. So without further ado, I'm gonna have her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamisha Macklin, and I spent 12 years in the Colorado State foster care and juvenile justice system. And I actually live here in Michigan now. So I relocated from Colorado to Michigan um, like 4 months ago. And so here I am.
Awesome, awesome. And so excited to have you on. I know we've been working to get this together for a while now, but we are here. So I'm gonna get us rolling with my first question really is let myself and the audience know a little bit more about the timeline of events that led you to the work that you do now.
Yes. So like I said, I entered the foster care system at a really young age. I was around age 6. And then I went into a kinship placement. And then after kinship, I actually ended up in the juvenile justice system in my preteen teenage years. And I aged out. I actually ended up just in and out of several different placements. And then I ended up going into uh, the Division of Youth Correction system and aging out at 19. And then when I aged out of the system, I decided to um, get involved and do a lot of advocacy work. I joined the Colorado State Youth Leadership Team and started working on policy and legislation to help improve the child welfare system. And so I did that for several years, and I just did a lot of volunteer work. And then I got involved in helping start a nonprofit organization that focused on reuniting siblings that were separated in foster care called Elevating Connections. That was my baby. It was really hard to leave Colorado and let all that work go, but it's in a really good place now, and it was a blessing and honor to be able to be a part of helping develop something that is like way more bigger than me, and it's thriving. But really focusing on creating programming for foster care youth, advocating for sibling rights and sibling reunification, making sure that siblings do have the right to see each other, and also being able to um, give back and help create system change. So, like I said, I worked on several pieces of policy and legislation. One of the first bills that I got to help pass was a Medicaid extension bill, which extended Medicaid first until age 21. And then after that, um, when the Obamacare went into effect and everything, that extended and revised it to age 26. so that youth weren't coming out of the system and not having those resources. Because when I aged out of the system, there was a lot of things that I didn't have or that I didn't qualify for. And it can be a struggle for a lot of youth. I worked in the runaway and homeless youth system for many years, and I got to help working with transition age youth populations, so youth that were exiting the foster care system and then finding themselves homeless. And so just being able to help them overcome some of the barriers and challenges of transitioning to independence and finding housing in the forever growing just housing crisis that we're in these days with gentrification and the increased amount of rents. Um, Rent is out of control, and especially in Colorado. So yeah, so it's definitely been a struggle to see, but I was really honored to be able to do that on a national level with the National Foster Youth and Alumni Policy Council. I was a part of that council from 2014 to 2016. And so I got to advocate on a national level, traveling to Washington, D.C., testifying before Congress on foster care and homelessness, and helping to be a part of creating more housing resources for transition age youth populations.
Awesome, awesome. You've done a lot. You've done a lot, and I just take a moment to give you your snaps and claps, and because we don't really do that a lot, for those that are doing it, because I've mentioned this a couple times on my podcast. Um, no matter what type of advocacy you're doing out there, there is a level of sacrifice of self, and sometimes you don't always um, get the flowers that you deserve, but also a lot of people aren't doing it for that. But I definitely think for our own mental health, it is good to be told that we are doing good and you are appreciated. So I just want to give you that time to let you know, like, thank you, because I was able to benefit from having healthcare Medicaid into 26. Because Lord knows I wouldn't have been able to see without being able to get my glasses. Uh, just being real. So I thank you for all the work that you've done. And I'm pretty sure there's millions and hundreds
Thank
of
you. I
other people out
appreciate that.
there that I appreciate you as well. Um, I want to take a step back here because you've accomplished a lot. And in the midst of accomplishing a lot of times when we are advocating, we're moving. There's a lot of movement, but also there's life in between those movements.
Hmm.
Um, so before I get to my first question, because my mind developed like two at the same time, how did you navigate from how you were feeling mentally when you first got to a place of stability of life, and I say quotations because sometimes when we first get out there and we live in, we think we are good, but we really not.
Hmm.
To where you are now, for
Hmm.
stability and punctuality of your life and the work that you do, what changes have happened in mindset, mentally, physically, in the different aspects of relationships you do and balancing it all, um, from then to now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it was not easy. When I first left, I was in a group home, and then I went into like an independent living place. And then after that, I had to get my own apartment, find a job, and try to go to college, right? Like fresh out,
Mm.
didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to make a difference. And so I went to the community college and studied human services. But I think one of the challenges is that when you're on your own, you have to work full time and go to school. And so trying to find that balance of working full time and going to school was difficult. And then also there was some challenges with the whole registration process and everything. Like as an independent student, having to like prove, that you are an independent student and getting all that paperwork. And So definitely did a lot of advocacy around that as well. I feel like as I was like living through a lot of the challenges, I was able, because of my youth leadership work, I was able to get together with other foster and alumni, and we were able to work on um, things collectively, to identify what were some of the challenges. We would have legislative meetings and different things every year and work on policy and legislation. And then we were able to put things together to help make a difference around education, like I said, healthcare. And actually, I was really proud just last year in the state of Colorado, after several years, they were finally able to pass the education bill. So now youth that are coming out of the foster care system in Colorado have a tuition waiver, so they don't have to pay for college anymore. Oh my goodness. They can
Definitely.
go get their degrees, and you can even go all the way up to a master's degree, which is super powerful and amazing. I was like, ah, man, do I want to stay in Colorado now so I get my master's paid for? No, I'm just kidding. But like it's been a lot over the years. It's been 15 years now. I can't believe it. Of just being on this journey and deciding that I wanted to do social work and that I wanted to help others, because at first I had no idea exactly what I was going to do. And actually, my first role was working within the juvenile justice system. My first job, just fresh out the system, was working at a restaurant. And so one of the directors of the program that I was in when I was in the juvenile justice system, she came in for dinner, and I was telling her how good I was doing and just everything. And she's like, well, there's a position available. There's an opportunity if you wanted to help create a mentoring program for youth that were involved within the child welfare and juvenile justice system. And so that was like one of my first jobs, was to be able to help and work for Denver Juvenile Probation. And that was like a huge full circle moment and honor and blessing. And so I got to um, and then I got to be a part of just some different community initiatives and collaborations within those systems. The House Bill 1451 Collaborative Management Program, which brought together systems of care, because one of the things that um, professionals realize within the system, is that the youth are touching all these different systems: juvenile justice, healthcare, education, child welfare. And if there's not a good communication or collaboration, then many youth can fall through the cracks, or there's a duplication of services. And so being able to be a part of those boards and sit alongside program directors and administrators, and be able to use my lived experience and share my story, and just having a seat at the table, I feel like I learned so much and I absorbed so much. But on that journey, like I said, it wasn't easy, because when you're doing that work, you're still going through a lot of those challenges yourself personally. There wasn't a lot of money coming in from doing that, and so I still had to work full time, take care of myself, and figure out exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? So I definitely faced some challenges, such as experiencing homelessness myself. But I feel like one of the things that I learned was just how to not let those challenges take over. Like, one of my favorite lines is never give up. So when life is happening and you're in crisis and you have these struggles, I really learned how to like seek support and seek out help from my community. But I also learned how to just continue that mindset, taking care of myself and not letting myself spiral down um, into old behaviors, old habits, like just not letting myself get sucked back into, the life that I was living. Because, like I said, I was in the juvenile justice system. I was exposed to many things, like being on the streets as a runaway and homeless youth. I was homeless at 14. and then I ended up, well, really, it was like around age, it was between 13 and 14. And I ended up in the juvenile justice system because at 14, I got involved in it was a human trafficking type situation. It was drug trafficking, and ended up selling drugs on the streets for survival. And that led me, I was a felon at 14 years old. And that put me in a really dark place. And I knew that I did not want to live that life. I knew that that life wasn't going to get me anywhere. And I struggled my whole teenage years in and out of the system, trying to like figure out myself. And really, I needed healing. I needed mental health treatment. And it took me actually getting committed before I actually was able to do that. So I'm really kind of blessed for my journey within the system because I did get a 0 to 2 year commitment. And I tell everyone, it's like I had a year and a half to really just focus on myself, my mental health, my trauma, my therapy. When you're in the system, they put you on all these psychotropic medications, and you're going through all these different therapies and things like that. But I really connected to my higher power spiritually when I was in those places. I found a mentor who really took me under her wing and like introduced me to her family and everything, and became basically my adopted family without the paperwork. So it's like I had one person in my life that wasn't getting paid to be in my life, that cared about me and actually just was there to listen to me when I needed someone to talk to and trust, and cry, a shoulder to cry on, and someone to be there through the ups and downs, the good and the bad. And so I think that having those strong community connections is really key and is something that's really important.
You touched on a lot there. Um, and as I'm thinking back to the words you just mentioned, you touched on, homelessness, juvenile justice, being in foster care, and more importantly, the aspect of healing in that journey. One thing that really stuck out to me is that you mentioned the importance of seeking support. And
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of times for those individuals exposed to the trauma of everyday life and important, more importantly, childhood trauma, as yourself, um, it's hard to ask for help. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
extremely hard. Whether it's pride or it just being putting it out all out on the floor, assumptions that we may place on asking this person or whatever it may be, it's extremely hard. So,
Mm-hmm.
at what point did you decide that I need to ask for some support or I'm not gonna make it?
Yeah, there was a few times where I needed support and I had to ask for help. I actually, when I was doing work for the Department of Human Services, actually, wait, before that, no, yeah. So I was doing some work with the Department of Human Services, and one of the supervisors of Denver Human Services actually co-signed on a lease for me, so that I wouldn't be homeless. Because that's the other thing. It's like if you don't have no credit history or anything like that, then, and I feel like during my time, during my transition, that was before we had all these housing vouchers and things. And so I didn't qualify for anything. And when I did work as a server at the restaurant, I was making pretty good money. So I didn't qualify for things like food stamps and all of that. I just had to like just survive, and just try to save up money and, work multiple jobs. You got to have multiple income sources. But I did have, some friends like that actually looked out for me and helped me with that. I had a couple people that actually did that for me, in order for me to not be homeless. The last time that happened was, I think it was like 2015. Between like 20, I was, last time I was homeless, I had homeless stint. So there was a time in 2014 where I was experiencing homelessness, and I did have a really good friend that co-signed on an apartment for me, and I'm really thankful for her and her husband that helped us out during that time. Um, and then after that, I had another friend that let me stay with her for a couple months while I was in between. And so just having those people that you can go to, you got to humble yourself, you know. And like I said, when you have those obstacles, because that was like the main challenges that I ever had was just like housing. And a lot of people have just misconceptions around why people can end up homeless, and they can be really judgmental and just be like, oh well, you're doing this and you're doing that, that's why you're homeless, you know. And it's not true. There's a lot of hardworking people that just can't afford to make ends meet, and it's the housing crisis is even worse than it was then. Like, you know, I tell the story of like I went from a studio to a one bedroom to a two bedroom, and the studio was more than the one bedroom. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, it's crazy. And by the time I finally decided I couldn't live in Denver anymore, it was a two bedroom and it was almost $2,000 a month. And I have two kids. So I was like, nah, I can't do this. I can't live like this anymore, you know, for my family. And I knew that we had more support here in Michigan. And so I finally took that leap of faith. But the biggest thing for me was getting my education. I was like, I cannot move to another state without at least having a bachelor's degree. And so during my whole transition journey, I worked full time and went to school and made sure that I completed my at least my bachelor's. And it took me forever, you know. Like, I started off part time and then I went to full time and really got serious about it. And I originally started in human services and then I transferred to the university and I wanted to get my BSW. But because I had so many human services credits, I got accepted into the social work program. And I remember I had like sat down and I was just like, I got to get through school. How am I going to get through school? Because I had got to a point where like I wasn't going to get financial aid, and I needed to graduate soon, you know, in order to get everything taken care of. And I found out that I was going to have to take like way more like extra credits in order to get my BSW. And so they had a program called the Individualized Degree Program at MSU Denver. Highly recommend it. And I actually was able to create my own degree, which was a combination of my everything that I was working on. So it was a combination of child welfare, human services, and juvenile justice. And so I studied high risk youth populations. I studied social work, and my degree is in cross systems youth services. And so that encompassed all of the advocacy and policy work that I did, all of the work that I did within the system. And so I was really blessed and thankful for that. So like I said, I did a combination of human services and social work, but specialized in high risk youth and child welfare. And just really blessed that I was able to do that. And I was like so close so many times. And then I thought I was done in 2019. And then they're like, oh, wait, you need one more class. And that was in 2020. So by the time I actually graduated, it was during the pandemic, and I didn't even get to have my graduation moment, you know, which was like, it was really sad because they did it virtually, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. You know, I had to work, so I didn't even go. But I'm like, one day I'll take, you know, I think I do want to work on my master's in the future, and so I'm like, one day I can always like have that moment with my cap and gown and everything. But it was just really important for me to accomplish that and um, be able to just have that taken care of before I decided to relocate to another state.
Definitely. You mentioned something that I know it all too well for myself, but I know it's not just a individual thing, like just out here trying to live life. Like this, I know that for individuals who have experience in care, there's a couple different things that you have initially against you than than coming from a two-parent household or even just a stable family foundation. Um, but even let's take that away. Let's take that away for a moment. I know lately, these past couple of years, there has been a struggle with housing for anybody, you know.
Mhm.
And from my knowledge and research, $100,000 is below the poverty line now if you making that a year. So I've mentioned on other episodes that it's just, when I'm sitting here advocating and I'm speaking to guests and I'm talking to youth at my day-to-day work, working in a juvenile corrections facility and some
Mhm.
other stuff that I do. I'm trying to breathe hope into
Mhm.
individuals, knowing what I know about how society is. And
Mhm.
one thing that I continue to tell them is that I'm going to give you the tools, I'm going to give you the words, but you have to put in the work, but also know that it isn't going to get easier once you leave here.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest important things that I can tell them, because one thing that was told to me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, I had a couple good people in my life in that transition. But not a lot when I was completely in the system, going through
Mhm.
placements and stuff like that. And they would just tell me, you get out there, you make it, you go to college, you're good. That's not true. There's a lot of
No.
there's a lot more. So one thing
Mhm.
I've made it my mission to do is to tell the youth that I work with, the young adults I encounter, is the real honest truth, so they can prepare themselves to face
Mhm.
hardships, and
Mhm.
to, unfortunately, because life be life, and build up a armor for
Mhm.
themselves, not just against society and the world, but also against people who don't want to see you make it.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
so, um,
Especially when you're a person of color, right?
so and that's one thing I value every day, because I'm like, I don't want to be that person that's giving them false truths or
Mhm.
false positives, because it's not going to be peaches and cream. It's not going to be sunshine and
Mhm.
rainbows every day. You may get one day out of 2 weeks, where it's like, oh dang, today was a really great day,
Mhm.
and I'm sad. It saddens me to say that, but to try to go to school, to work, and most young people that I encounter are providing for a kid.
Mhm.
you know, um,
Yeah.
it's spreading the human being way thinner than they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And then we are in this place of life where we're telling these individuals to make sure you're doing self care. Where?
Mhm.
Where they look at it, where do I do it at?
Mhm.
When? Is that the 2 seconds before I can try to get some sleep before I got to get back up to work, or is that the 2 seconds before class start? So I get it. I understand it's frustrating, but one thing I do want to say to those that may be facing something similar out there today is that, if anything from my story and Tamisha's story, is that it's possible.
Mhm.
It's possible, and with resilience, with a destination in mind, um, you can make it. It may take, you may got to extend that timeline a little bit.
Mhm.
It may not be how you wanted it to look like, or how everybody else's or all your other friends graduated, or all your other
Mhm.
people got their first house or apartment, but
Exactly.
it's gonna be unique to you. And that's one thing I'm learning,
Mhm.
because I speak to a lot of people who
Yeah.
had the journey of school too, and most people
Mhm.
don't know. But I don't have a degree, and I've been doing this work for a very long time. And I'm currently still working through school, taking one class, taking two classes,
Mhm.
on top of advocating, on top of work,
Mhm.
multiple jobs, and doing a lot of other stuff. So, like, I understand that it takes time, and my journey doesn't look like everyone else's. And I know in the
Mhm.
heat of the moment, you be like, "Dang, why can't I get it like them, or why can't I do it like that?" We got to take time to be like, I'm not gonna worry about them. I'm gonna worry about me.
Mm-hmm.
That's my little
Me
ramble, but
too.
I had to say that little
Yeah.
piece right there because I just sit
No,
there
so
listening, and it's
true.
like, you know, a lot of times we are trying to make our situation look like somebody else's, and it's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's not looking like that now. So, I just want to give
Yep.
that little bit of advice and that little piece of hope that if you set that destination and you be realistic with yourself and what your needs and what your desires are and wants, you can definitely make it. It's just gonna take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and you can't be so hard on yourself, you know. I learned some really awesome coping skills. So writing is really important to me. My poetry is really important to me. But journaling and setting goals, before I left the system, I wrote down all these things that I needed to accomplish, and to look back and like see those boxes checked off. And I think one of the things that I would get hard on myself about was like my age or my timeline, like, okay, by age this, I need to do this, and it's like, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen and it's okay, and I was very blessed that I was able to get a job in the field before I even had my degree. So working alongside people that actually had their master's degrees and we're working the same job, making the same, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, and now education in college looks different, because a lot of people are doing different things. Like you can get a trade, you can get a certification. Like you don't have to get a 4-year college degree. I mean, people are, there's a lot of articles coming out. People are saying college is a scam, it's putting people in debt, like we owe all this money afterwards. And so for youth that are involved in the system, I will say do your research because there's been a lot of policy and legislation that has been passed to make sure that college doesn't have to be a costly financial burden. There are so many scholarships out there. Um, and so if anyone ever needs like coaching or mentoring or has questions about my journey, you could definitely reach out. Like I said, Colorado's not the only state that has a tuition waiver for foster youth, which is amazing. And so if you do want to get that 4-year degree or even that master's degree, there is a way and there's money out there. So you do have to find it. I wish I would have found some and didn't have to like pay back student loans and all of that. But you know, things happen, but there's programs out there for loan forgiveness if you work, in, a nonprofit for so many years and different things like that. And so just be knowledgeable in that way. Um, and like I said, a huge way for me to cope has definitely been helping others, giving back. The nonprofit that I got to be a part of, starting Elevating Connections, and creating programming for youth that were aging out of the system to have that community support and connection, and teach writing skills to youth and creative writing and poetry has been my dream and my passion. And I'm working on a book, poetry book that I want to dedicate to system involved youth. And so, before we wrap up, I would like to share my poem with you all, and hopefully that will help. And I actually wrote this was like one of the first poems that I did perform at the poetry jam, and this kind of defines like just like a lot that I've been through, even when I was in the system and coming out of the system, and the challenges that I face. So it's called Overcoming Trauma and Finding Resilience. Overwhelmed by the never ending toxic stress throughout my life. From the start, my understanding of family and love was distorted. I grew up looking for love and belonging, but received abuse, neglect, and instability. My innocence was lost. I grew up way too fast. It was hard to escape a troublesome past. Left with feelings of being a burden, I was unwanted. In the past, I was curious about playing the game of life so fast and so furious. But when things got serious, when the money was right, time paused without a cause and the handcuffs were tight. I was living in the dark and God turned on the light. I was stuck in a place without a sound and there was no one around. They called me a juvenile delinquent. They said there was no hope for someone like me. But little did they know, I would rise above, that I would overcome, that I would learn from my mistakes, that I would heal from my pain and heartaches. As time goes on, it starts to get easier. You start to build a tolerance. No one will ever understand the complexity of my trauma. This thing called life is a never ending drama. I carry on a persona that everything's okay and nothing could ever phase me because the things that I have been through never ceases to amaze me. Feeling the economic stress of oppression, living in a nation where gentrification is accepted, homelessness is criminalized, when all they really want to do is to survive and the right to rest. I learned from the start that I'm living in a cold world and expect nothing less. I feel like even through the darkness, I'm always able to find the light, to see between the lines of what's wrong and right. To not let my voice be silenced, I will fight professionally with my words. I forgive, to be free, and to move forward. Here I am now as I stand before you. I am not the person that I used to be. They labeled me as a troubled youth. They labeled me as someone that was broken and abused. You know what? That may have been the case, but my past will not define who I am today because I will rise above anything that the people have to say. I will not listen to negativity, but instead, I will only hear nothing but positivity. I will rise above because I know I can do better. I know that I deserve better, and I know that I am better than the person I used to be. Today was made for me to be the person I was meant to be. I was made to be a woman of strength and courage. Today was made for me to be a light in someone's darkness, to give hope to the hopeless. Today was made for me to rise above my struggles. Today was made for me to be great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, snaps. Man,
Oh my goodness. I haven't like read through that out loud in a long time. So yeah, that was pretty deep.
definitely, it hit home in so many different areas. As we get ready to end, man, we touched on so many different things, and I just hope that somebody out there truly takes some of these little pieces of advice, parts of your story, my story, um, and just learn from it. One thing I will say is I learned through coming back to the front lines because I've been out of it for a little bit, in the aspect of working in a corrections facility and coming back to the front lines is that a lot of people like to go through things and learn the hard way.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I feel like I've never been one. I've never been one. Like, if you tell me something, look, like, and I have that rapport with you, I'm just like, look, I don't even need to go through it. You look, I'm gonna live it through you. Like, I don't want to add any more stress to whatever else I got going on. So if I can provide any insight to struggles, bad decisions, good decisions, or what have you on the journey that you're currently living in. I hope that you're able to take heed in it, and make some decisions for yourself that work for you. Um,
Mhm.
as I get ready to end, is there any pieces of advice you would like to leave here today?
Um just keep fighting, stay strong. Seek support. There are people out there in the community that want to help. So if you need help and you need resources, seek support. Um, I'm really blessed and honored. One of the things that really carried me forward is seeing that there is a whole foster alumni community out there. There's a whole network of people that have survived and made it out on the other side, that are finding their success, and that want to give back and that actually care. And so don't hesitate. Like you could find, I'm easy to find. You can find me on Facebook. Like I said, I do want to write a book and publish and share my story in a different way to help others. But just stay positive, stay strong, never give up, and you just have to believe in yourself, first and foremost, because you could do anything you put your mind to. And I know that's cliche and people say all these lines and sayings, but I really strongly believe that, to the core, because there was a lot of things that I didn't think that I would be able to do, and here I am. And I actually was able to do a career change after working with runaway and homeless youth. I just started a new position as a foster care case manager. And so I'm going through a 9-week child welfare training. And just even the past 2 weeks of starting this new position has been a journey, and I'm learning a lot, and I feel like I could be more understanding, of people that work within the system, because I feel like a lot of people are just, the system is out to get me. And at the end of the day, like, the people that work in it want to do this work to help make a difference. And you just have to trust the process, and just utilize your supports, utilize your resources, and use your voice. Don't let anyone silence you, because your voice matters and you matter.
Thank you so much for being a part of this today. I hope to have you back on as you get that book written and come back on
I would
for
definitely
that
love to
whatever
do that.
capacity that looks like for you. But I definitely
Definitely.
appreciate you making time to be on here. As I get ready to end, I would be remiss if I didn't, do my old faithful outro. We touched on a lot of different things that could hit close to home for many people out there. I just ask, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and sitting in the car on the way to work, whenever you're listening to this, you take some time to practice some mindfulness, bring yourself back to baseline, do a couple
Mhm.
because I know like some of this stuff can be hard to hear, especially
Mhm.
when you like, dang, that was me. you know. So I just take some time, and listen to the words that are being conveyed through this episode. Listen to the message, listen to the story, in its entirety. And don't just take away the hardships, but take away the positivity and the resilience within it as well. Uh,
Mhm.
if so happens this has kind of sparked some memories of things you went through and you don't know where to find that support or that help, please reach out. My email is attached, on the description of this. Tamisha's information will be attached to this as well. If you want to reach out, ask her any further questions. If you want to reach out and ask me to help finding supports in your area, whatever that looks like, I'm more than willing to.
Mhm.
That being said, it's wintertime. and just be safe out there. Cold and flu season, influenza, COVID still happening. Other viruses
Yep.
popping out of the nowhere. Please protect yourself. Keep some hand sanitizer, keep a mask with you in your car, wherever. If you're feeling sick, it's no shame in taking that day off. Versus getting the rest of your team sick.
Self care is the best care. Put you
No.
first.
Look, by taking care of you, you are taking care of your whole village of whoever you care about. So please, take that time for you. Also, um, please continue to support the people who've been on here. Look at the Rolodex of episodes. There's some people who have nonprofits, who have books, who have small businesses, what have you. They need your help. They need your help, to help them keep going. As we've mentioned numerous times through many different stories, it's hard advocating. Advocates don't get paid how y'all think we get paid. I'm gonna just put it out there. They don't. And I know it's so many other things that you might be like, oh well, this, that, and the third. But I'm just saying, for half the things that people be fighting about or wanting to get pushed, it starts with advocates. So please, take some time if you're thinking about donating, supporting, whatever that looks like, sharing a post. Look at some of the people I've had on, show them some love in some way, form, or fashion. With that being said, this has been episode 28 of season 3, my 117th episode. Resilient Voices and Beyond. I hope that you have a good morning, good night, good whenever you're listening to this. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.